Hello and welcome to another week of Game Wisdom Live here on the YouTube channel. This is for the week of September 21st, 2017. Joining me as always, my co-host streamer, Robert Leach.
Hello.
Oh,
Oh, we got some feedback. Hold on a second.
oh,
Turn off. There we go.
it's good that it
Sorry.
happened on your end because I've usually been guilty of that one in the past.
All kinds of problems. Hold on.
The joy of doing things live. Alright. Hopefully we won't hear you.
Okay. I'm back. Stupid technology.
So, been a very interesting week here. I hit just over 2,300 subscribers on the Game Wisdom YouTube channel. So again, thank you to everyone who is enjoying the content and subscribing. I've also added in a new tier for the $5 pledge on Patreon. It's now just going to be called the VIP tier. So this will get you access to a private channel on our Discord. You'll get access to the voting privileges, and I figured we could open things up for like a once a month Q&A. Like maybe the last Game Wisdom Live of each month, we'll take fan submitted questions from anyone who donates at least to that tier. So again, if you're interested, patreon.com/gwbycer, and for this month, of course, we are halfway to our goal of $100 for a Resident Evil 7 Let's Play for October. Now, with that said, it's been a very interesting week. I just did a live stream the other night with a few developers working on a kickstarted tabletop kind of like party game. So that, if you missed that, that will be up on the channel in a few days. But it has certainly been a very busy week in terms of video games, and there's been a whole lot I've been playing, and with a lot of the embargoes ending, it's giving me a chance to finally get time to talk about them. But since I'm sure I could go on for a while, I'll switch things over to you, Rob. So how are things going with you, and what's been going on over the last week?
Not too much. I played some more Torchlight 2. That's the game of the game du jour for me. Trying to get through it. Let's see what else. Screwing around with my own game design. So I had a game I started late last year, and finally moving forward with it again. So I'm looking forward to it. It's exciting.
Elgor saying in chat was a casual chat. Casual is about a 2-hour chat for me. If it goes like to 3 hours, that's when we call an extreme chat here for the streams. But yeah, I've been getting ready for next week's presentations. I've been once again dipping my toe further and further into mobile games and seeing what comes out of it, which I'm starting to, I guess, get out of the honeymoon phase of looking at something like the gacha influenced titles. My friends told me about Idle Heroes and this game called Summoner's War, which are both like that kind of gacha-based design. You know, the different things are rated 1 to 5 stars. Higher stars means more quality. And it's getting to that point where I'm starting to see the forest for the trees and realizing, oh my goodness, am I going to really have to spend this much time or this much money to make any kind of headway in it? And, I mean, the design is definitely there. I'm sure these games have hooked who knows how many hundreds of thousands of people, but it just doesn't feel like doable to me, especially with the fact that I have all these games on the PC I need to get around to playing. I just posted my review of War of the Chosen today, and I still have barely scratched the surface of that one.
Yeah, those games are just designed to be played forever. I mean, most mobile games, like you look at Candy Crush, it's been around for how long because they keep adding levels. They won't stop. So, part of the deal for making a mobile game that's even a little bit popular is you have to keep people around by just adding more and more and more. So getting through the game is pretty much impossible. Pretty much.
No, I didn't see your tweet there, Laura, about a Lost Vikings homage game. Sounds interesting.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like with the gacha-based design, as someone who looks at game design on a regular basis, it's just like very easy to see like all the traps that they have there. There's 5 or 6 different kinds of resources that you have to deal with, which of course means 5 or 6 different revenue streams that they can charge you for. And I kept getting bugged on that Summoner's War about limited time only, spend $5 for a $30 package of things. It's like, but I'm not getting anything in that package. I'm getting like tickets to roll the slot machine. Mushroom Heroes. Huh. I'll have to take a look at that one.
Yeah, me too.
And like, it's just very weird, like, to see those kinds of games or trying to get into them. I did sign up to get a preview or hopefully get first notice about I know there's a South Park game that's going to be like a tactical strategy game. I think they announced that at E3 last year. I mean, that sounds interesting, but in the same breath, I'm just thinking, how many different ways are they going to find to get me to force me to spend money like that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the money aspect is pretty big, but like, those games for me are meant to be played like maybe a half hour a day when you're in an idle situation, going to the bathroom. It just happens to be a perfect time. So it is one of those things where, depending on how long you want to go in that game, yeah, you're gonna have to spend money. But if you're just looking to casually just explore and do things, yeah, you're gonna have you have plenty of time to just kind of to enjoy it if you want to, or just move on to something else, which is what I usually wind up doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I'm going to probably have to do that soon, especially with all the PC games that are finally starting to come out, especially from the independent space. So this week I did a complete play of Super Hydra, which I know you were on for like the first part, but I did manage to beat it that night.
Oh, nice.
And as a fun bit, I now have a new official title. Before I was called Game Ruiner, now I'm known as Captain Average. Because on the final screen, like, it shows your rank, it puts your rank above whatever like your score bonus was, like, poor, great, average. So it says you are now Captain Average. So at least I moved up in terms of title, so we could get like the Final Fantasy theme here. I think that would be appropriate. But I definitely had a lot of fun with Super Hydra. I sent the developer a request to come on, and maybe he'll come on at some point. But I would love to talk to him more about kind of designing these style of games.
Yeah, I mean, those are it's that got that perfect retro feel, like what Gordo was saying, all the way down to like the voice work and just the that single like well done or something along those lines. That's just a little off, but at the same time, it just has that old school feel. It's the detail work is very nice there.
Yeah, I think my favorite line is when the guy goes, "I'm a shoot 'em up pilot." Like, I just love like someone saying that, like, and being serious. But yeah, and for those of you watching this here live record, definitely check out the other games from Loco Maltio, Curse Castalia, Curse of Ezio, and there's several more that are all free from his site, with the expanded or elevated versions usually on Steam when they actually come out. Because I think Super Hydra has been in development for a few years now, because I was seeing videos from like 2-3 years of people previewing it. So I think he's just like a 1 or 2 man development studio. So it's definitely good to see that kind of design come from such a small studio.
Yeah, it's just like you can see the labor of love behind it, and the level of detail and attention to detail that he has, and that is nice to see. It really is.
Now, in some other games that I've had a chance to play this week, I got a new Idle game for you to get hooked on, Rob. Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms. It's a Dungeons and Dragons Idle game.
Sheesh.
So have fun with that one for like the next 10 to 20 days of play there.
God. I just like to leave it alone for several months and then come back and I have so much money and I can just spend it all in like 5 seconds and advance 100 levels, of course. But it's just kind of funny to revisit them and just see how much money you've accumulated in your absence.
Definitely. Let's see, some other games. I did play A Robot Named Fight. It's a Metroidvania roguelike style game. Very interesting one. I think it's a good example of a game that has a really solid foundation, but it's not all the way there in terms of its design. Like, the roguelike elements just aren't pronounced enough to make each run feel different. Like, it pretty much looks and plays like Metroid, but I'm basically doing the same thing on run 1 that I'm doing on run 5 or 6. I may get a few different power-ups here and there, but the path through is going to be the same. But El Gordo was telling me that they are planning an update for October, so fingers crossed that this will kind of add in that missing piece.
Yeah, you need that extra replayability factor. Just throw in some new things, stuff that you couldn't have gotten the first time through. It's just that's kind of 101 at this point, maybe 102.
Let's see. I did get a few more games that are finally coming out of embargo or don't have an embargo I'm going to have a chance to talk about. I got this game, Battle Chasers Night War. I think it's embargo until next week. It's a tactical RPG. The production values are amazing on it. I can't wait to actually show it off when it actually comes out. Let's see. Vaporum, the steampunk Legends of Grimrock. There we go. I think that embargo ends next week, so I'll be excited to take a look at that one. And I just got a key for the game Pylon Rogue, which is supposed to be an ARPG roguelike. I installed it earlier, but I have not had a chance to sit down and play it. So hopefully I get my hands on that over the weekend and get some videos up for it.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I've been into the ARPG genre lately, for the last 6 months, I guess. Yeah.
But the big name game that came out today was, of course, Heat Signature. This is the game from Tom Francis, who made Gunpoint. Did you ever play Gunpoint, Rob?
No, I did not. I did not play Gunpoint, sadly.
Very interesting game. Like, it's very hard to categorize what his games are about. Like, this one it's a procedurally space roguelike stealth game where you sneak aboard ships and cause all manner of trouble. And if you get knocked out, they shoot you out the airlock and you have to fly back, get your spaceship to try and grab you while you're floating in mid-space before you run out of oxygen. Oh, that's cool. So it's a game based on the canceled comic from the guy who created Darksiders, the Battle Chasers. Huh. Very interesting. Yeah, the art style of the game is beautiful. I will say that. If you have a chance to look it up on Steam or Google Images, it really has that wow factor in terms of visual aesthetics. Let's see. Any other games? Oh, and my friend wanted me to take a look at this game that I got a press key for. It's called Niche. It's a strategy survival game where you're growing like a clan of animals. I got a press key from the developer, but this is one of those games where the tutorial is such, like, not helpful at all. It's very hard to learn. So I'm hoping to do something live, so that way maybe with the combined effort of the chat, I can figure out how to play this game.
Yeah, for sure. Chat is always helpful when it comes to that kind of thing. Thank God.
And tonight we will be doing some Heat Signature. I may do some Niche tonight. If we don't have time, I'll just stick with Heat Signature. Someone recommended me the game Crypt Arc, which is like this survival, again, like another like roguelike in space kind of game that I was playing on stream. The idea is that you invade these ships and you have to destroy the AI systems to weaken enough to destroy the core, and that takes a ship over. But I found it just be very overwhelming at the high level. Like, it's one of those games that just like tries to throw everything at you at once, and then it's like, what the hell am I supposed to do, kind of thing.
Yeah, learning the hard way. I know a lot of games love that, and sometimes I love it back, but it can be too much.
And there's always that very fine line between making something too punishing but still have a challenge versus making it too easy and doesn't hook anyone, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what skill levels are for, right? So, yeah.
Now, as some big excitement, next week we finally have Cuphead coming out at long frickin' last. I feel like it's been development for like 45 years at this point.
Yeah, we've only been talking about it for the last few weeks, and it feels like it's been several years to me, too.
So I cannot wait to get my hands on that one. Hopefully I get a press key for it. If not, I will just have to buckle down and buy it. But yeah, that will certainly be a Let's Play. I'm hoping to get more than one night out of it, but I have a feeling I may just sit and just get through the whole thing if I can in one single sitting.
Yeah, I'll have to watch. I really love that art style.
I know Darkest Dungeon, they're still working on an update for a new class. I haven't heard anything else other than the name of it, so... or what the class looks like.
What is it?
It's some kind of like shield or like defense class. So it
Mm.
looks very interesting. Again, I have no reason to doubt that it's going to be a very good addition to the game. Speaking of which, I believe that either this week or next week I'll be posting my podcast chat with Chris Barassa from Red Hook. We kind of did a post-mortem on Crimson Court, how the design came about, what kind of nightmares that Chris had to come up with the creatures for the game. As a quick spoiler, we talked about how he was inspired to do mosquitoes because as a child he remembered going camping and the mosquitoes driving him nuts. So that's how he got the maddening whine for those creatures. So that was a lot of fun, and I can certainly attest to being driven nuts by those damn mosquitoes as well.
Yeah, it sounds pretty par for the course for a mosquito, I think.
hmm Now, in terms of things that are coming up, like I said, if you're going to be in the area on the 26th and 27th, I'll be having a presentation at the Camden Library here in New Jersey on the 26th, and the Vogelston branch that's in Voorhees, New Jersey on the 27th. So, if there are any local people watching, be sure to come out and say hi. I'll make a little announcement video about probably Monday or Tuesday, and hopefully I get a pretty decent turnout this time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more about those talks. I know the first turnout was a little disappointing, but
hmm
yeah, I think you're going to start pulling them in.
Yeah, I'm gonna also try and maybe at least record myself like standing around waiting for people to come in, just so I have proof of, hey, I'm actually doing this instead of just saying, oh, I did a presentation, it was great. Because I know there's people wondering, did he just like stay at home for the hour and didn't go anywhere?
Yeah, just have to get a couple of people to sign a paper for you, get it
hmm
notarized. You're good.
Exactly. Now let's see. Yep, exactly. We'll record with. Now that I finally have a smartphone, I gotta start making use of it, other than just for Uber and playing gotcha games all day long. Excuse me. But other than that, I guess in terms of industry topics, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on. There is one big thing that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But I guess from your end, Rob, did any like news pieces catch your eye?
No, I won't. I mean, nothing really did. I've been focused on a couple other things this week, but I did get, and this is interesting because we had mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, I think. Um, Still being kind of, I haven't taken a lot of stuff down from my publishing website, so I still get occasionally some emails. And one of the guys I was in talks with way back, it was last year for Serial Cleaner. He's been reaching out to publishers. They've got a new game that they're bringing out, and
hmm
it looks good. I'm not going to say anything about it because I don't know what they want said about it, but it really does look good. And those guys, Serial Cleaner was a really cool game and a
hmm
great concept. So, I'm excited to see more stuff come out of that area.
hmm Yeah, they are already working on another game that's very interesting. Because I just played Serial Cleaner, it felt like about a month ago. So that's cool. Oh, here's a game that's coming out, I believe, tomorrow that some of my friends have been mentioning. Steam World Dig 2. Have you heard of the Steam World series, Rob?
No, I haven't, and I just rocked my camera. But no, I haven't heard that. I would like to. I've heard of Dig. I doubt that's related at all, but yeah, I'd be interested to hear more.
The Steam World series, it basically follows like obviously steampunk kind of driven robots, and like each game has like a different genre or style to it. The Dig series is kind of like a Metroidvania game when you're digging into
Oh,
the
cool.
earth to find like little dungeons and upgrades, then let you dig further and further down. They also did Steam World Heist, which is kind of like a quasi XCOM or tactical based game where you're
Cool.
steampunk pirates in space battling other robots, and you can shoot their hats off, and then you take the hat for yourself just as a trophy,
That's
basically.
pretty funny.
And each game has like really amazing music. I don't know if it's their own like specific band that does the music, or they hire someone out, but they have some really great music to their games as well. And SteamWorld Dig 2, I believe, is going to be their, let's see, one, two. This will be, I guess, number three of the series. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know they've had a few games, and they're also like available on like I think like every platform. Because I know people have played on like the 3DS, XBLA, and of course on the PC. Yeah, so it looks like it's 3 main games: SteamWorld Heist, Dig, and Dig 2. So I'm definitely interested to see how number 2 goes, because the first game, like, there's a 3-year gap between Dig and Heist, and that was completely different design. So this is kind of going back to the first one and see if they'll iterate or evolve it from that first design.
Yeah, I love it when you have like thematic games like that. I remember Abe's Odyssey had a world that was kind of themed together amongst a variety of different games and characters. So yeah, I'd like to see more of that. I'll have to write down SteamWorld.
Yeah. With Oddworlds, they were quote unquote the quintology that they were originally promoting, which it's disappeared. Now they're trying to bring it back, but we're not sure. Maybe it will happen. At this point, no one knows for sure. But I know there's a sale going on for Oddworld. Yeah, I think on GOG they were having some sales on some of the Oddworld games there.
Nice.
But yeah, we could certainly spend like an hour or two talking about Oddworld easily.
Yeah.
Let's see. I've been again going in and out of playing Gwent. It's very fascinating to watch the game, and I think I would love to have a design, like an actual like chat about the design. But I know have you had a chance to play any of Gwent, Rob?
No, I'll take it as homework. I'll have to take it as homework.
Well, the thoughts I've been having, I was watching like a few of the bigger streamers who cover the game and watching them talk about, is that CD Projekt, and I think this is what's making it very interesting compared to other CCGs, is that they are, like with each patch, they are just radically gutting the game. Essentially changing systems and card rules. It's not the same as like with Hearthstone, wherein a new patch adds in new cards, but the original stuff usually gets preserved. In this case, a new patch comes out, and it's just kind of like a wrecking ball across everything else.
It's interesting. If you own a card, does it stay or does it go?
It stays, but they give you the option of milling it for full value. So essentially, it's a way of you selling it and then being able to easily afford something else. It's basically by milling a lot of cards that I was never going to use. It gave me the opportunity to just basically buy like every major Nilfgaard, which is one of the major factions. I got all their gold cards. But I'll give you an example, like one of the big changes that's got everyone like up in a tizzy, I guess is the expression. But in Gwent, cards are ranked bronze, silver, and gold. And of course, bronze are your basic cards, silver are your specialty, golds are your, these are like the deck defining cards for your thing. And previously, gold cards were immune, which means you can't buff them, you can't nerf them, you can't damage them. So if a gold card has like a once per turn effect, unless you have a card that can specifically lock it, it's going to play for every turn that round is going for. And that's what gave them a lot of power, and why you had gold cards that had very little power, but because they're immune, it's basically you can't touch them, and this was a major part of the strategy. So in the last patch, they made it so now gold cards can be affected by everything. So if I place a really powerful gold card down, and the opponent has something that does damage, he can just knock my gold card right off the table, and guess what? It's gone. And that means that whatever powerful effect it was going to do, or whatever its function was, I lose it. And the point, though, what was the balancing issue, was that the gold cards were supposed to be the trump cards in your deck. These are the major things that you place it down, it means something. But now, I mean, I've done it to opponents as well. They place a gold card down, I play something that does damage, boom, it's gone, and we never see it again, kind of thing. And it's got a lot of people feeling like the power disparity in Gwent is getting more and more up there. So just the fact that they've been buffing up bronze cards, so now bronzes have as much power as silver and golds in some cases. And it's just like very fascinating. Like, I got into the Gwent beta about 5-6 months ago, so it wasn't, all, first round of alpha or beta. It was like a few months in. But even at that point, it's just like a roller coaster in terms of what they're doing with patching and balancing that game.
Do they give any reasons, like specific reasons why they're doing something? Like they found that it was way too unbalanced with the gold cards being, um,
I
undefeatable.
I am sure they have talked about. They usually have, I think, weekly live casts. I know before every patch comes out, they do like a big stream to announce it. But I've not watched any of those. But I've seen like the major streamers sort of like comment and do like their reaction to the patch notes kind of thing. So I mean, it's very interesting, but it's also like very weird. Like they've had a few competitive tournaments already for Gwent, but I'm not sure how stable a competitive scene can be when every like 3 4 months they just pull the rug right out from under everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't give anyone a chance to really get good and find strategies and find
Mm-hmm.
counter strategies. If it's all up in the air, you're basically just flying by the seat of your pants, just knowing you might know the mechanics, but if the mechanics are changing, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's yeah, ripping the carpet out from under you.
Yeah. And I think another part is that there's still, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of cards in Gwent. Like we've talked about this before, this idea of like the meta solidifying in any competitive game. Like it seems like the first week the patch comes out, the meta is completely out of control, everything's new and exciting, and then it gets locked like 8 days later. Like it doesn't seem like it lasts long enough to really start seeing things. Like for those of you who don't follow Gwent, like right now the big name decks are Milgard, which is basically I play cards that we allow us to both draw cards from our deck, but your deck will basically run out of cards before mine. So that way I can keep playing and you can't. And like it just seems like a really, I talked about this before, like oases of power. Like there are a few decks in Gwen that are just super powerful, like everyone uses them, but then everything else just doesn't come close to that level. And if we start talking about it now, we are like 30 minutes in. I could keep talking about this for another 40 or 50 minutes easily. But I do have another topic I want to ask you about, Rob. I was seeing on Twitter, I forget his name, the developer behind Sir, You Are Being Hunted. It was like an indie survival game from a few years ago. They were talking about how people were complaining that they weren't continuing to support the game. And I think this is just a very interesting topic, especially as things have evolved with games as a service and that expectation of post release support. So I just wanted to ask you, like, again, as someone who's done publishing and has worked in game development, what do you think about the idea of long-term support for a game? Like, do you feel like this is something that should be a given, or is it something that should be more like up in the air?
Well, I mean, certainly it's as the years have gone on, it's just pushed in that direction more and more
Mm-hmm.
and more. And as a consumer, I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the long-term support. I like them adding things like there's plenty of games that I played that every couple of months there's something new and it brings
Mm-hmm.
me right back. So there's definitely a benefit for the developer. However, if you're a small developer, like, and you're just kind of making a living, you're making just enough off your game to sustain, there's a certain point where you need to move on to the next
Mm-hmm.
project because that one project is just not gonna do it for you long term. So if you're expecting a small time developer like a 1 to 5 man team to upkeep a game, well, you got to either assume that they're making a ton of money and can afford someone to upkeep it, or you just kind of got to let them go do their thing and just be a fan of the developer instead of the game. Uh, it's just about expectations of the consumer. For a AAA developer, yeah, they have the resources, but for a
Mm-hmm.
small time, yeah, it's just not there.
Yeah, man. I was just looking up Battle Brawlers, which we've talked about before, and like kind of like how they got caught in the crossfire from their fans demanding more content and work, and them saying it's just there's just not any money in it. Like we can't keep supporting this game, and it's just one of those things that gets very awkward because and the developer behind Sir You're Behind also said like there's people who like say that they're lazy or they're abandoning the game, but if you release a game and you put everything that you promise, like I kind of feel like that's the mark. Like that's kind of like the end point. Like anything else should be like icing on the cake rather than demanded or entitled to.
Well, there is one solution for the small-time developer, and it's not applicable to every game, but that is allowing modding
Yeah.
and community creation features. Because when a community can take it over, well, the developer's not needed anymore,
Yeah.
because the people are basically developing all the content, and it's infinite content. So that's one way to go. I know for Reassembly, that's what happened. Is that Arthur made the game, but he made plenty of like modding capability and plenty of freedom to create, crowd created content, and it still keeps going while he's working on his next game. And so that is definitely a solution to the problem, but not one everyone can take on. It's not easy to make that kind of content available.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, it also depends on the design of the title as well. Coming up with new costumes or hats for characters is a far different story from creating entirely new quest chains and character classes. And speaking about modding support, that was I think another part that got Brawlers in trouble, because they said that their programming is just like so confusing and messed up from working on the game for so long that they couldn't release modding tools for it. And I think that was also like another bullet in the gun against them.
Yeah, I mean that is a feature you basically have to consider from day one. If you don't consider that feature early, you're never gonna. You can't make it. It's a spaghetti mess of code. So to go back and comb your way through it, you're basically gonna have to rewrite a ton of stuff. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It's the same thing with multiplayer. That it is far better to think about multiplayer from day one rather than waiting 2 months before your game comes out and says, "Hey, let's throw in a cute little multiplayer scene."
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, as another quick update, I just saw that Stonehearth, a game that I've been following for some time, just got another major patch or a major update, and that's another very interesting case. The game's been in development now for, my goodness, I don't even remember how long this game has been out, because I actually kickstarted this one, and I don't remember when I gave them money. But it's also another case of that kind of long-term support, and like just how much work do you reasonably put into a game. Now, of course, Stonehearth is still in early access, so that is different than a game that's already been released. But there's always been that kind of push and pull between how much do I want to work on this game, or how much do I want to add into this game before I say 1.0 is here, let's go do something else.
Yeah, I mean it is. It's all about what you as a developer want to do with the game. I mean, I often talk about Dwarf Fortress. Those two guys have, I mean, they're probably not working on anything else in their lives. They might, but I mean, this is their lifelong project, and it's always going to be, evolving. But most people, especially if you're going to make a game company, you have to move on to other projects. There's that severe rat tail. Once you release a game, the sales dwindle immediately. And yeah, you can't sustain that way. You can't sustain off a trickle of new users who give you money every now and again and ignore the fact that, oh, shoot, I'm going to have to pay bills again soon. My money is running out. Yeah, you got to go for a new one, and sooner than later is it definitely best if you're a developer. But yeah, you risk pushing some of your fans away.
Yeah, and like as you said, like if the money is still coming in, there definitely is cause or reason to keep developing for a game. If a game is successful, why not add more to it? But as you said, for a lot of indie games, it may not be earning, the millions of dollars that a lot of consumers think it will. And like I spoke to Chris Park several times about this from Arkin Games, and how they adopted a very much a wait and see strategy for post-release support. He basically told me that if the game does well, he has 5 to 10 different ideas for what could be DLC. If the game doesn't do well, they're in the trash bin or they're put back on the shelf for another time. Like, it doesn't make sense to develop, spend the next 2 or 3 months working on content if, your game just barely broke even.
Yeah, and I agree with El Gordo, the clear objectives and a roadmap. Unfortunately, you don't see that very often. It's sad, but I mean, even amongst very big developers, they don't necessarily have that, and it is one of those things where it seems obvious, but for some reason people can't adhere to that. And yeah, it's the downfall of so many games.
Whether it's just by getting miss working on like the wrong projects, or just simply, as we've seen before, the kitchen sink approach. We're just gonna add in every idea into our game, and surely it will be better.
Yeah.
Let's see. I just checked, and geez, I still can't believe Stonehearth came out, or the original Kickstarter was for December 2013, and they've been working on it now for 4 years. Oh boy! And there's always, and I think this is also, as Makoro was saying in chat, about sort of how this has conditioned people about this kind of support. That you see games that have gone through early access, and like every month something new gets added, or every other month, and it becomes like, again, if they can do it, why can't you? And again, even if the game, and this was another fun one, people, when they were attacking Brawlers, were saying, your game sold, like, I saw you sold like 1 million copies, or you sold 500,000 copies, you guys must be millionaires now, why can't you put more money into it? And again, like, as I'm sure you are as well as I am, that just because your game sold $1 million doesn't mean you actually took home $1 million.
Yeah. I mean, there's cuts everywhere. First of all, I mean, you got the distributor, and then you've got anyone who worked on your project. You've got, if you have a Kickstarter, anybody you owe stuff to, and then of course there's just living expenses and just everything. You're not sitting there with a silo full of gold coins like Scrooge McDuck. All that money is mostly earmarked for stuff, and very few of it becomes like buying a yacht or going on a world cruise. Like, that doesn't really happen.
Owning that private island we all want at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's always that kind of challenge, because as we said at the start, it's becoming more and more expected from a lot of developers. I mean, we're even seeing AAA developers go the route with post-release support, the season pass, microtransactions. Speaking of which, here's a semi-quick tangent / question for you, Rob. For AAA games, this is a big debate among some people. Do you think AAA titles should have microtransactions in any way, shape, or form?
See, that's a weird, it's an odd question for a lot of reasons, because, I mean, when you say should a big developer have that, that almost suggests that it's better suited for small developers. But I feel like it's so hard to make money off of microtransactions. You have to put a lot of money into advertising them and developing that as a community. But I always felt that if you paid upfront for a game, there shouldn't be any back-end transactions. That's kind of how I feel about it. If it's all free to play, well, that is the money-making strategy for that, is microtransactions. But yeah, if I paid up front, I don't like to feel like I have to give them more money to play the game that I purchased. So I mean, I get like a World of Warcraft, right? Where or The Sims or something, where they have a whole new, basically giant feature set that they would like you to pay for. I mean, that's not exactly a microtransaction. That's buying another sub game for the game. But yeah, it's I guess I'd say no. To make that a short answer, no, I don't think they should.
Yeah, and like I said, even with games that are designed around it, I always get this like weird feeling in the back of my head, thinking, yes, I'm enjoying this game, but how much of this game has been skewed towards microtransactions and monetization? Like, as Melgore was saying, Destiny 2 has a season pass of around $120 and sells microtransactions, and even Overwatch, a $60 game from Blizzard, still has loot boxes on top of that. And again, it just feels off. And I talked about this in an Industry Insight that's going to go up in a few days, about it's that difference in expectations. Like, if I'm spending $60 on a game, I'm expecting, the full course. I'm expecting the 5-star treatment. And there's, of course, that big question of, if I'm giving you $60, why are you still asking for more money? Especially if it's something continual. And as you just said, I think that's a big point. Like, when I bought the expansion for XCOM 2, that's not a microtransaction. That's entirely brand new systems and gameplay that's layered on top of the base experience. That's new development. It's not like I have to keep spending $5 every week to play the game or to unlock additional resources.
Yeah. And that actually does tie into the previous conversation, where there are some games, I should say, that release content that's, comes with the game, that it could be considered a whole new part of the game. Like Terraria, I felt every one of their new things could have easily been another, purchase. But then they kind of set a standard. Like how big does your new content have to be before you can charge money? I mean, I don't think any of these have an answer. It's such a crazy world in the games market.
Exactly. And I'll give you sort of like a brief glimpse into the rabbit hole of what I've been dealing with. Have you had a chance to play that game Summoner's War yet on the Android or mobile?
No, I have not.
It's
Have it.
It's an RPG. Oh, I should have brought my phone here too. That way we can both we can have like 5 minutes of silence while we're both just staring at our smartphones. That would be some riveting conversations there.
Yeah, I was just trying to see which games I do have, but no, I don't see Summoner's War. I'll just have to download it later.
So the idea is you build a party of various monsters. They of course come in different elements, different star rarities, stuff like that. So in order to make any progress, you're going to love this one. So first, you can raise the star level of any monster, which gives it new skills, it ups the level cap, and you have to get more experience. But then you can also awaken the monster, which turns it into a purple star class that gives it a new skill and even higher stats. But to do that, you need to get special elemental resources, which requires you to go into a special dungeon. But wait, the special dungeon costs you energy, and the higher you go, the more energy it costs. And then, even then, in order to have an effective party, you also need to attach runes to each character, and the runes cost more resources to level them up. But when you level up, there's a chance that can break. And then, even then, in order to even survive, you also have to get different elemental creatures. So you have to roll more scrolls or do more of the slot machine. But then you have to level them up and awaken them, and it just goes on and on and on and so on. And
yeah, I felt that Shop Heroes was like that a lot. I mean, that many currencies. It's confusing. It just you don't know where to start and what you need to like if you have money and you want to spend it, where do you spend the money to get the most out of the ridiculous number of currencies they have? I mean, it's not easy to figure out as just kind of a casual consumer. Even a hardcore gamer might have to sit down with a calculator and a piece of paper and say, okay, what's the best bang for my buck here?
Yeah, and you of course know why the resources are spread out across 5 or 6 different categories, because it's all designed to add to the grind, and it also adds to the gotcha, because I can have a super high level of water based team, but if I want to go fight something that's weak against fire, well, guess what? I need to go find some fire monsters and level them up and power them up. And so, I mean, it's still a really great game. As I said in my video about the mobile market, the design is sound, but it's just completely tied up in the microtransactions and the monetization.
Yeah, it does. It gets messy really fast.
Elgar is saying microtransaction souls. You almost forgot. Every time you die at a boss fight, you also have to buy a ticket to get back into the boss fight, on top of recharging your Estus flask.
Yeah, even the more casual games use that same kind of thing. It's like, do you want another 10 seconds on this level to complete your objective? If so, here pay a big chunk of your currency, and yeah, it doesn't stop, because you're right there, and it's just saying, you know what? We know that this is a trigger for you. We know that mentally you must complete this action, and you're so close. Here, give us some money and we'll let you do it.
Watch a 30-second ad. I've seen the same Final Fantasy. There's a Final Fantasy mobile game now. I've seen that ad about 5 times now.
That made me disgusted when I saw that. I'm like, how is Square's? Oh my God, that kills not my childhood, but my college years right there. It just kills it.
Did you see that Final Fantasy mobile game that drove everybody up the wall? I think it was either last year or the year before.
I didn't. I just seen this latest one that looks kind of like a Clash of Clans clone.
Yeah, I did download Clash of Clans. I played for 5 minutes. I'm going, this is what earned them billions of dollars. I'm like,
yeah,
I just
millions a day. Millions a day.
Oh, I think I need to stop the stream for a second and just like curl up into a ball on the floor after hearing
Yeah,
that.
and let's say you got into it. Well, what are you going to do? There's people who've been playing it since day one that are just dominating, and you're never ever going to get there. There's never. It's got
Unless,
it
of
like
course, you have a whole lot of money in your bank account.
even then. I mean, you're
Mm-hmm.
basically going up against someone who's got years of building up everything from scratch, and they've put money in because they don't want to fall behind. They got to keep up with the Joneses. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it's never like someone who's new into it just can never expect unless they have that a way of buying someone else's character. They're never going to get there, and it's a little it's like a little disheartening.
And the same concern will be said of just making a game for the mobile market as well. You know, how is someone going to try and be the next Candy Crush or the next Clash of Clans? They're not, because those games are still pulling in millions of dollars a day. It's not. I think this is actually a very interesting point. When we look at AAA and independent games, these games have a market shelf life. I know when Madden 2017 comes out, Madden 2016, that's gone, or even after a few months. But in the mobile space, these games, there's no reason to create a sequel or to create something new. Why, toss out the goose that lays the golden eggs, in a matter of speaking? So you're never going to see King, turn off Candy Crush Saga unless, heaven forbid, one day everyone just stops giving them money. The same goes for Clash of Clans. So how does someone new enter that market?
I don't know. And the thing that always blew my mind, because knowing that market and knowing it's been the same like 3 to 5 games
Mm-hmm.
just permanently, and there are apps that get up there in the top 10. Generally speaking, the apps that get in the top 10 are like Candy Crush, Classic Clans. There was God, I can't remember, but there was another one of those types of games. The Clash of Clans people had like 3 games up there at one time, Heyday, and then Battle Beaches or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the other games tend to be slot machine games, like probably 2 or 3 of those at all times in the top 10. And then you have something like HBO will come up there or Netflix will come up there just to pop up because the whole point of that app existing is to be a subscription purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So it automatically gets up there because it's extremely popular and earns money. But like those make sense. The games which are free and give free content, it's just mind-blowing. It's completely mind-blowing. But the thing that confused me the most is Rovio, because they're the ones that decided to stop and change their direction a little bit to take Angry Birds and like go, oh, you know what, we're going to do Angry Birds 2 or Star Wars Angry Birds, and you know what, we're going to take some time off and do a movie for some reason and a TV series. And to me, it's like, we know you have a lot of money. We know you made a lot of money, but you just gave up your spot. And getting it back is going to take forever. So, like, I don't understand why they did that, or because you're right, that market it's indestructible. You can't get into that top 5 or top 10. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's why I'm very interested to see what the South Park game's going to do whenever it gets released, because obviously South Park is a major brand. It's not like this is going to be coming from a no-name studio. So if anyone has a good chance, like Nintendo kind of did with Super Mario Run and Fire Emblem Heroes, I think South Park will be another good break-in. And speaking about Fire Emblem Heroes, like that was another game that I've heard people rant and rave about. I downloaded, played for 5 minutes. I got to the very first gotcha of the game. I'm like, oh god, no, I'm not doing this. Because when you combine random progression with hard rock paper scissors combat, unless you are super lucky, you're going to be in deep trouble. And I remember reading guides when the game first came out, people saying, you gotta keep rerolling, you gotta get a perfect 5-star, I forget what class it was. And what's interesting was I looked, because Fire Emblem actually shows you the percent chances for their gacha machines. So it says like a 5-star hero, it's a 5% chance of dropping. I'm like, why would I want to play this if I know that I only have a 5% chance of actually making meaningful progression? Because again, in these kinds of games, it's 5-star or bust, and they're inherently designed like that.
Yeah, it is. It's very frustrating, and it is odd for a new game. I mean, Fire Emblem is a well-known, brand amongst gamers. I mean, especially like Nintendo gamers. But when you get to this market, which is a casual dominating market, you're not going to like someone's going to look at what's Fire Emblem? I don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they know what Candy Crush is, they know what Jewel was, and but like something new like that, I don't know how they stand a chance unless somehow all these gamers who like Fire Emblem, the first time I played it was on not the DS but the God, what was before the DS? I forgot already. The Game Boy Advance.
Game Boy Advance, yeah.
Yeah, so that's when I first played it, Fire Emblem. If I'm a Nintendo fan and I've been playing Fire Emblem forever, why am I playing games on a phone instead of a handheld device? Like, that seems like a bit of a broken logic right there to make that game.
And again, it's one of those cases where you can really, it's easy to see where the monetization is impacting the game. In this case, it's of course the gacha based design. But the Fire Emblem series is known for its rock, paper, scissors combat. So again, it just feels off. And again, like, I know people who they'll get hooked on that and they'll go down that rabbit hole for months. The same for Pokemon Go, the same for Summoner's War, Shop Heroes, Idle Heroes, all the idle and shop games you can imagine. But I think this is like one of the things I think separates like people like us, like more of the core and hardcore market, from the mobile side. I mean, at the very start of this podcast, I talked about 5 different video games that I'm playing right now. Do I really have the time to play one game like this? And, heaven forbid, go down that buying spree. Like, one of the games, even the Summoners War, I see they have $99 purchases, $100, $130. I'm like, I have full price games I want to buy. Why would I want to give one game $100?
Yeah, I feel like it's the and this is something I've taught with, that we could bring up, and again, it's a topic unto itself, and that is the addictive parts of games. And a lot of these free to play games deliberately poke you in that part of your brain so that you want to play more and you want to give them money. Like, it's the slot machine thing. Like, you go there and it's just part of your brain. You're just like, okay, I want to keep putting money in because I'm eventually going to get money. I mean, it is entertainment. I firmly stand by that, but there are problem gamblers just like there are problem gamers. And this free to play market, microtransactions, really takes advantage of a huge subset of people that many people just aren't paying attention to.
Yeah.
It really does. It takes advantage. There's a problem there. There's an addiction there that we just don't breach in the game industry or think about.
Yeah. And it's a very interesting point because games are inherently designed to be addictive. I mean, there's a reason people are still playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Overwatch, Counter-Strike. Insert fighting game here. These games are designed to elicit pleasure and keep you going. As you said, release the chemicals in your brain to get you to keep playing. But those games aren't throwing, 50-cent dollar purchase in front of you every 5 to 10 minutes. And again, like, it feels off to see this kind of stuff because I know the design works. Like I said, I have nothing wrong with the progression model of Summoner's War, something like Fire Emblem Heroes. But when you attach, as you said, like, it's essentially gambling. You are putting money in and hoping to get something good out of it, and you tie that to game progression. It is a very powerful addictive. And let's face it, it works. I mean, we can't deny that games like Clash of Clans, Angry Birds, and these games, they're not earning chunk change. They are earning serious money day in and day out. But, it's kind of like, is that the ethical way to make money?
Yeah, and I feel like the company that really took the brunt of it and yet laid the groundwork for all these other companies was Zynga. Like, they went at it like they were soulless, money grabbing bastards. Because I remember specifically Farmville 2. There was towards the beginning, there was the thing where you needed to complete 3 things, and the third thing was to invite all your friends to play Farmville. Now, the 3 steps were building a bridge, and on one side was like a baby deer with big eyes, and it was crying, and the other side was the parent. And so if you didn't complete that third step, you have a baby deer that's never going to see its mother. So it's totally just grabbing this horrible emotional connection and trying to wrench it out to grab some of that just extra those extra eyeballs for the game to get more money. Yeah, Zynga took a lot of flack, and deservedly so, because they just went at it relentlessly and unabashedly. But other games now are just being a little slicker about it, so I don't feel like they're any better.
Yeah. And Zelgaro says the only way to slow this would be to have some kind of regulations. But as we talked about before, I'm just wondering, like, the day they announce, like, limiting microtransaction or monetization, will the whole mobile market just, like, collapse in on itself? Would, like, Clash of Clans just, like, crumble in, like, a day, and they suddenly say you can't have microtransactions, or there has to be a limit on how much you can reasonably offer someone?
Yeah, I mean the thing is, and I feel like this is a well-known deal, is that most of these games make the vast amount of their money from whales or single players with a lot of money, and so if you limit it, suddenly the big chunk of their money goes away. And you know what? I think it is for the best. They don't have to, like, I don't feel like they need to be clipped off at the knees. I mean, they're making millions a day, and like Clash of Clans, and I don't know why the company's name is escaping me. I should know that. But like I mean, they're like a company of 50 people. The last when I looked at it, they're a company of 50 people. They got bought out. 50% of their company and 51% of their company was bought out 2 different times. They made billions off of those acquisitions, and they still have complete creative control of their product. And just 50 people. They're all millionaires now, at least any of the ones that were early on. And you know what? I'm fine with them only making a couple $100,000 a day. That's still a pretty good business plan. So, I mean, it is. Regulation is something I really do believe in. Certainly, there's bad parts about regulation. That's a whole can of worms. But when it comes to, like, taking advantage of the consumer, I feel like that needs to stop.
And I agree with you, Elgoro, that it has to come from outside, because these companies aren't going to do it themselves, definitely. And it hasn't reached that, critical mass problem. The same goes for the idea of, cosmetic or loot box buying and selling, the whole gray market of, CSGO skins and that whole crazy thing. But that's easily another 20 30 minutes if we start talking about it now. I know we are approaching, or we're just about to hit an hour, so there's one topic I want to at least touch on tonight, and then we'll begin to wrap things up for this week's show. And this is about an article that I linked over on our Discord channel. And again, for you folks watching, if you'd like to join us, it's only $1 or more donation to patreon.com/GWBycer. But it was an article that was posted on Polygon regarding accepting or not completely writing off what the author called messy games. And I have an industry insight that I just recorded beforehand, so I won't go too far into my thoughts on this. But I want to see what you thought about this, Rob. Again, as someone who's been in the industry and has worked on games in the past.
Yeah, so just to give it a quick, a description, the messy games refers to, just like it kind of alludes to the type of movie it's not pristine, it's not perfect, and yet you kind of give it grace a little bit to get through the movie and enjoy it for other reasons. In a game, I guess it refers to games that aren't perfect. And I am someone who, as I mentioned in Discord, for better or worse, I do like playing these terrible, terrible games. There's a few games in the past, and I actually met the developer of one of them. Is Gubble, Gubble, on PlayStation. Oh my god, it's miserable. But like, you see these games and I play them because I'll play anything, and it's you don't know how they get made. But the problem is when you talk about a messy game, if you're a player and you're playing a game and you start to see some bugs, you run into some like weird glitches or what have you. If you're just a casual observer, you're not necessarily focused on that one thing. But if you're a player, like your character is the whole world. I mean, you're looking through the character's eyes at everything that's going on. So if your character runs into a glitch, well, that glitch is suddenly a piece of the world. And for me, it just breaks that fourth wall. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's all about immersiveness in a video game. And then when that snaps, you're just like, oh God, well, I guess I'm playing a game that's buggy, and suddenly it's just not as good. I remember a game, I can't remember the name of it, but it was by THQ years ago. I was playing it and playing it and enjoying it, and then I got to a save point that crashed the game,
Mm-hmm.
and so I lost all this progress, and that was the last time I ever played the game. And so I'm not going to give it the benefit of the
Mm-hmm.
doubt when a glitch like that happens. I mean, sure, all games have bugs, but the ones that affect gameplay, you can't let go through.
Yeah.
That's a messy game that just I don't know if that's what you're talking about when you say messy to that author. Then I got to say no. I got to
Mm-hmm.
disagree.
Yeah, and I had that happen to me when I played Silent Hill Homecoming for the Nintendo Wii a few years ago. I played for like 2-3 hours straight without saving, and then the game crashed. I lost it all that time. I was like, I'm not replaying this again. I just shelved the game. And you're right about when we start talking about gameplay or performance issues like that, it is very hard to give a developer a pass regarding that kind of stuff. It goes back to what we were saying earlier regarding quality standards. Like the author talked about like Mass Effect Andromeda. That was a $60 game that was released. When we're talking at that level, there shouldn't be major issues with that game. We expect more out of it because we're paying more. Like when I buy a $5 to $10 indie game, I know I'm not going to be getting, Unreal Engine 4 level graphics and 300 hours of gameplay. But I still expect this game to work. I expect to enjoy what was presented to me or what was advertised.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like even with the game being on a console system, I mean, you've paid specifically that you've paid enough money for that console to work. You can't have games that are crappy, and that's why at least it used to be where you had to pay $10,000 to get Xbox or Microsoft or Sony to review your game
Mm-hmm.
before they'd even let it go on there. But like, yeah, in Steam's market, there are too many games out there that are like just shovelware. Like you just pick it up,
Mm-hmm.
it's a couple of bucks, you're like, oh yay, and then you find out that it is miserable. And we've talked about that one company that I always forget their name that had that lawsuit thing happen.
Digital Homicide?
Yeah, Digital
Yeah.
Homicide, and I have all their games on Steam before they left. I have all of them, and they are miserable. They lack any kind of quality control. And you pay for it, and you're like, oh my god, this is embarrassing. I mean, I play it, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah.
How did this happen? It's a train wreck. And
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it totally. It's like you got ripped off. And like you say with Silent Hill, you're not. It's like once bitten, twice shy.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, I put in 2 hours that is gone now.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I do that again? Why would I risk another 2 hour experience to
Mm-hmm.
to lose it again? I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that. It's kind of just
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those unwritten rules of don't ever do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, and that's like again like where I find flaws in the article. Like it sometimes seems like the author's trying to give like a pass to these games. But again, there's a very big difference between designing a game and having issues or, being, a diamond in the rough versus having a game that you promise X, Y, and Z and you didn't deliver any of that with your game. I can't unfortunately support a developer like that. And like I said, like between the two of us, we've seen a huge variety from the independent space. Now these games aren't these massive titles. They were never supposed to be. But you get what you pay for. When I buy like again like with Super Hydra, I think the game's only like $10 or $14 on Steam. And what it does, there's no complaints about. Like what the developers set out to do, they accomplished that. And I think that's different from say like the whole No Man's Sky debacle with them promising all this and never made in. The same goes for like Black and White or Goddess or the movies. Basically, the whole Peter Molyneux timeline over the last decade.
I remember the movies. That was about the same time as Spore. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember being at E3 and looking at the movies. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait
Ugh.
for this. This is amazing. I can make my own movies. And then, yeah, and then you just run into the wall and you're like, oh my God, this is nothing like what they said.
Yeah, the movies, I think that's the game that killed my childhood innocence. That was a game I'm like, I'm so excited, can't wait to play. And then it came out, I'm like, this world sucks now. I hate everybody.
Yeah.
Peter messing you, yeah. Oh, maybe one of these days I'll do a dissecting design on Goddess. Maybe we call it like a dissecting train wreck or something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Although the last time I played, I couldn't even get the game to load, so that could be a very short. That could be my cheat dissecting design. Just let's look at Goddess. Game doesn't work. Well, that's it for this week, folks. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you all next time. I gotta save that for a week that I have no idea of what to cover. That will be my buy for that week. But getting back to the topic regarding like messy games, and again, that kind of trouble, like it's one of those things again that goes into like the mysteries of game development. Like for a lot of consumers, you don't see how the sausage is being made. You only see the final product. And excuse me, like with something like Mass Effect Andromeda, I know like a month or two after release, they report that they spent like the first 18 months doing like nothing, or like what they did, they had to scrap. And it's one of those things where it's hard to give the developer credit when they have these major issues. Like we've talked about earlier, like when you brought up about developers who don't follow or have a clear roadmap for their games. Like when these games fail or they don't turn out as expected, it's hard to give them slack in that regard.
Yeah, and the author points out, she points out that how complicated and complex making a game is, and to me that doesn't excuse it from being messy. To me, it forces you to pay more attention to what you're doing, because like there's art, there's sound, there's programming, there's design, and it all has to work well. I mean, and art is just complicated as hell because of the way the assets have to go, and sound is also complicated because you have to write cues and it has to be thematic, and then of course design is all over the map, especially depending on the type of game you've got. And it's if you don't have people paying attention to all that stuff, then like what are you trying to make? I mean, that's like if someone's just slacking on the detail on even one of those items, then it's not going to be a good experience.
No, definitely not. And as we've said before, a lot has to go right in order for a game to work. And if you fail any step of the way, that can easily doom a game. And as we've said before, a lot of people will only view the final product. They'll see a game that came out and it's a success and think, oh, this game must have went perfectly. Well, what happens if that game spent an extra 2 to 3 years in development hell? What if, the whole team collapsed under the weight, put the game aside, and had to come back, or they even sold the game to another developer to try and finish it? Such as the game from Playdeck, the Ogre Battle, Spiritual Six that I talked about, Untold Legend, something like that. And yeah, as Laura said, like lack of polish can be a pass. Like as we said, like if I'm playing an indie game, I'm not expecting, a masterpiece art in this game. Like I've played more than my share of pixel art games over the years that last a lifetime. And it works. Is it going to ooh and ah me, or am I going to deem the game for it? No. But the game worked. But as you said, like if it's a critical thing, like if I buy your game and a part of your progression model literally doesn't work or wasn't play tested, messy or not, that's a broken game in my book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unsung story, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely stories, I guess no pun intended there, of that kind of development hell when things go wrong. My number 9 being another example. And we've talked about this before with a lot of big name developers don't seem to understand, or they have that trouble making that transition to a smaller team. When you're no longer just, a cog in the machine, you're supposed to be the captain of the ship.
Yeah, it's totally true.
Let's see, we are just over an hour in. I figure we could start to wrap things up. Again, we could probably just sit here and chat for like another 40 minutes to an hour or anything, but I know it is getting late. So, for those of you watching, I'll have an industry insight about more of my thoughts on this, probably, I want to say either Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Be sure to check out the live stream I did the other night with, I think they were called Strife Games. And I'll have the podcast up as well. Like I said, I think this is the one that I did with Chris Barassa. Very great chat. Again, if you love Darkest Dungeon, give that a listen. For tonight's stream, I'm going to be looking at Heat Signature and possibly Niche if there is enough time. If not, I may just save that for tomorrow. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you want to listen to more of Rob, he does streaming on weekends. And have you done any weekday streams since we last spoke?
No, I'm still working on that. I'm probably going to do some design stuff, or I might just throw an hour of games in there every now and again. But I am working towards getting that going. I will alert the presses when that happens.
Awesome, and you can watch him on twitch.tv/IndieVoyageRob. And for myself, be sure to check back for daily discussions on game design. We do these live shows every Thursday night around 9:30 Eastern. And like I said, check out the Patreon for ways to support and get into our Discord channel. Again, you can talk to Rob and I on a daily basis about all manner of design topics. We are more than happy to talk. And like I said, be sure to check back or come back later for you watching live for my game stream and for Rob over on the weekend as well. But that is going to do it for this evening. I ran out of all my drinks about halfway through, so I need to fill back up before I get going. But thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you all later, and we'll talk again next week. Alright, until then, have a great night.